Jai Hind and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. The Russia-Ukraine crisis has brought about one more issue in this part of the world, China. To discuss the situation of China in this two-part series, let me put it across right at the beginning, is with me, Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar. In the first series, we will, before we actually look at the India-China part of it, let's look at what China is going through themselves with the fallout of the Ukraine war and the many other situations that are there within China, and then build across onto the discussion how should India handle China with the upcoming visit of the foreign minister of China. That's probably the first time any diplomatic level planned discussion of any sort is happening between these two countries, apart from the two meetings that happened between Jai Shankar and Wang Yi abroad during the height of the standoff. What do we see on the horizon is something that we will discuss. Thank you for joining us, and stay tuned for the part 2 as well, which will be coming out in the next couple of days. So, interesting times for China. I think with the call yesterday of Joe Biden and China, they've actually come into a lot of focus suddenly. And the world has been obviously watching what China is wanting to do. So, it's going to be an interesting discussion.
Yeah, I agree with you. See, fundamentally, as far as we are concerned, this Ukraine business and the war there is a European affair, though it has international ramifications. We have to look at our interests. Our core problem is with China, right? And of course, the Ukrainian war is going to have a fallout on China, and that will affect our equation. And suddenly, Mr. Wang Yi wants to come to India. There are implications why he wants to come to India, right? But I think, like you rightly said, we need to discuss this in two parts. In this part, we'll focus on China, where China stands today. Once we know where China stands today, then we can see what, how we have to handle it. And what should be our thing, for Mr. Wang Yi's, it's a proposed visit as of now, it's not confirmed. For his proposed visit as to where we take it. Let's start.
So I think I want to start with the most dangerous thing that is the fallout of this, Ukraine war. There are talks of nuclear weapons, there are talks of biological weapons and stuff like that. Let's focus on the nuclear aspect of it. One of the biggest things that people are realizing today is that the nuclear umbrella does protect you from all-out invasion by. There can be skirmishes, but all-out invasion is quite difficult because there is a certain deterrence that gets provided for. And we read this, we've discussed this in our previous, the nuclear threats that were made by Putin at the beginning of the Ukraine war. We've taken it up. Now we see, looking at the Chinese angle of it, we see the Chinese also getting surrounded by two sides by nuclear adversaries, because South Korea and Japan have already started talking about basing nuclear assets, US nuclear assets on their soil. Previously, it was only India with two, nuclear adversaries on both sides. Today, China finds itself in the same position. How do you analyze, the Chinese status of security?
See, this complicates Chinese security system completely. Once there are nuclear weapons, either indigenous, if it's an indigenous development, it is a step farther. If it is just about American nuclear assets being deployed on China and Japan, South Korea and Japan, as it is being debated, then the issue is a little different. But in either case, the nuclear environment, China has to look at the other end. At one end, it has a nuclear Japan. It would have a nuclear Japan and a nuclear South Korea, apart from the American nuclear umbrella which is there. And the other end, it has India. So its nuclear environment gets a little more complicated. Now that puts actually Taiwan a little away. Why? See, for 2-3 reasons. One, this nuclear thing will complicate matters. The second thing is that Taiwan will take the Ukraine model. They've already started training accordingly, where the reservists training period is increased and all that. And if Taiwan starts fighting like Ukraine, then it becomes a prickly pear to swallow, right? catching it militarily is going to be a difficult affair for China, and China has to rethink its entire strategy. And one more thing which the Ukraine war has taught everyone, that war is still violent and hard. All the soft war, of AI and this and that, all is all far fetched. You see in this thing, yeah, some drones will work, no problem. There'll be information war, all that will be there. But the cyber business is not that, it's not going to collapse people's setups. So the Chinese have to fight. They have to realize that they have to fight. In this such a war, can they fight? And mind you, you're talking of an amphibious operation. A amphibious operation against 270 open seas of 270 kilometers. It's going to be the most complicated operation. It has never been tried after the Falklands War.
Mm.
Okay, that is when the Britishers did it, but they had the experience of Normandy landings. Now that is all gone. So you think they'll be able to do it? I don't know. I don't think so. So Taiwan is getting out of the reach. Nuclear issue is getting this thing. The entire security situation in that area is going to get complicated. But there are other issues we can discuss. Yeah, there is some we could take on. Uh, yeah, we could discuss the economics if you are okay with it.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'd like to take up economics and COVID, which is actually, economic fallout will be from COVID. We are now looking at almost 50, 60 million people under lockdowns. Yeah. Chinese, one thing which is out of the news that people don't talk about, Chinese actually provide for a lot of medical infrastructure for their cities. So all this mass testing and this and that is being done by the government. They're spending tons and tons of money to kind of stabilize the situation, not to even mention the loss of workers and stuff like that. How do you analyze as it is 5.5% projection by China, on top of it, COVID in the most industrialized zones of China and Hong Kong literally going down the tube? So,
yeah, you're right. I think it's a serious situation. In fact, we've discussed this, that COVID will catch China one day or the other. It has caught. That's the first thing. Today, I just saw some time back the first death after that Wuhan has happened in China, COVID death. Okay. And there are a lot of cities which are under lockdown, huge cities, and they're ramping up their medical thing. One thing about China, you should know, while their cities are well ramped up, equipped for medical help and all, the suburbs are not that great.
Mm.
And this has just started. You're talking about a vulnerable population where vaccines are not effective and where the surge seems to be pretty virulent. Okay. So it's going to hit their economy. It had already hit their economy. These lockdowns, this lockdown now is going to be faster, more. Earlier, say till last month, I used to see in China Daily Everyday Report 200 cases, 100 cases, 50 cases. Suddenly, it's 3 to 4,000 cases, and all locally transmitted. So they're going to go through a tough time. It's not going to get controlled so easily because it's a huge population. After all, it's not something which can be eradicated just like that. If they have to control it, they have to go into mass lockdowns. Yeah, the other alternative is lockdowns, which means they're going to hit their economies. Already the local governments, that is the state governments, as we call it, provincial governments, they are having problems financially.
Mm.
It's not this thing. Now, along with this is the fact that this is going to slow their economy. Now, there are other issues of slowing the economy. Let's go back to Ukraine. First and foremost, the way Ukraine whole thing is going, the transatlantic bonding has taken place between Europe and USA. They feel Russia and China are on the other side. So that's going to hit their economy. Europe will not be very kind to China if China chooses to be kind to Russia. So and mind you, a lot of linkages, trade linkages with Europe are important because Europe is a good payer. It's all, we're talking of rich countries who can afford a lot of Chinese goods. That market is on shaky wicket. Then Ukraine itself, Ukraine gives wheat to them. It's one aspect of the BRI. A lot of defense engines and aircraft engines come from Ukraine. That's all gone. Ukraine sees China as its, I wouldn't say adversary, it's in the opposite camp of Russia. So that also is going to hit them. There's going to be more issues, right? Plus the fact that their real estate problem has not gone anywhere. Last month, 15th of February, the report was the home sales have been the lowest in 15 years.
15 years, yes.
Yeah, just because Ukraine war has come and we don't focus on China, those problems have not gone away. There are no jobs. No, yeah, it's a fact, no?
Yeah, absolutely.
There are no jobs. Consumption is weak, right? So, all this business of common prosperity and all is going nowhere. No one knows what is common prosperity. So, their economy is in a problem. And this will only get compounded with the latest developments. So, if your economy is going down, will China be so belligerent? That's the question. And they have problems. And we have to remember, China remains an energy deficient nation. It's a resource and an energy deficient nation. It is dependent on someone else. Okay, Russia doesn't fulfill all their demands, nor will China like to put all their eggs in the Russian basket. So there has to be a bit diversification. The moment that happens and China becomes belligerent and a few sanctions on China, you see the impact. If I'm just saying, if similar sanctions like what has been put on Russia, even half of them are put on China, China will have problems. Right? More than ever, that you see what we spoke of Taiwan. If Taiwan is not captured or made part of China, they don't get access to open seas. They have to still focus on their shore. So if their naval power cannot be deployed, they're not a superpower. Taiwan plus Ukraine problem will affect BRI. So there are many angles which have not come out. Because our focus has been on Ukraine, all these have still in thing. So it's not that. I mean, unless you have another thing, you can talk.
No, as a matter of fact, I think China is going to become one of the major focus areas of the world. And what you're saying is right. Our focus has been actually towards Europe for a little bit, and we need to switch back and keep on watching China, which is actually the main issue that the world is dealing with. One of the things.
Not only that, not only that. You see, while if you remember till the Ukraine crisis, we were talking of China, right? Both of us and in our shows. Ukraine crisis has come, it has taken over, but we are now focusing back to China.
Yeah.
And you see the difference in China, what we spoke then and now. The vulnerabilities of China have come up. That's the issue.
That was a more attitude-driven, focused into the Beijing Olympics, showing people the game and stuff like that. So there is also, you mentioned now, whatever said and done, whatever back-end channeling which is happening between Russia and China, it's not going to be hidden. The world is not something that you can hide something for a long time. So when all this stuff comes out, there will be decoupling, which is as it is happening. So there's going to be some more targeted decoupling. We see on a daily basis, no matter what, there are sanctions on Chinese companies that are coming out from the West day after day. It's one after the other. And, we call them the app ban. But actually, if you look at it, they're Indian sanctions on Chinese companies as well.
Yeah. So it's not only us, others have also put sanctions.
Exactly. So there is targeted decoupling which is happening. It's like creating a pariah of some sort. How does that affect China in its, aim to be close to the world? The Russians have never claimed to be so, but Chinese are.
See, there are three aspects to this, three different. One is certain amount of decoupling and certain amount of sanctions and bans were happening earlier also. Right? So, there were some firms were to be delisted from Hong Kong, from the New York Stock Exchange and all that was going on. Like we've banned their apps, all that. So that decoupling is only going to increase now. The fact is that the moment, you know, China starts supporting Russia, and if it comes out that China knew about Russia as this thing, these sanctions are going to increase.
Yeah.
That's the second part. Now, the third part of the story is that the Europeans are now going to be wary about China. And that's a big loss. There's, there's another kind of indirect decoupling which is going to take place. The European economy is going to undergo a change. They're going to get more militarized and they're going to be internalized. They're going to be more Russia focused. If that is the case, their consumption levels will decrease. There's going to be inflation. If there's inflation, consumption goes down. If there's consumption goes down, who will get hit? China. So there is going to be a problem. As it is, inflation, there are worries of inflation, global inflation, and because of this crisis. So if there's a worry of global inflation on this crisis, it will hit China also, and China will get affected. So you link all this up with the decoupling, which is going to happen. So it's going to be a problem for them. That's the point.
Decoupling seems to be one of the things that is, I think the Chinese are going to be fearing the most because of any overt sort of a commitment that they make towards Russia. It's going to be a difficult decision, sir. There's no question.
Not only that, there's another decoupling which can happen in the Middle East. We've had this Western Quad, India, UAE, and Israel. The view in China is that this is going to impinge on their market in UAE, or rather the Gulf. And
is that why they're making inroads with Saudi?
No, they'll make inroads because of the oil thing. But I'm talking of their exports. The exports are, this Western Quad will eat into Chinese exports. So there's a problem there. So the decoupling will have more nuances than what it was earlier. Some will be forced on them, whether they like it or not. Of course, don't forget that certain amount of decoupling will happen because of Quad also. I mean, Quad is not finished. All these are in suspended animation because of this crisis, but they're all happening. And they'll only catch speed because the Western world will not trust China. There's a trust factor of China which is missing. So there's going to be more decoupling.
That agreed with, sir. There's no other country in the world that has been blamed to be or, honored to be supporting Russia for that matter. I think the Chinese are the ones that are being singled out today.
In fact, if you read the Global Times, one of yesterday or the day before, they very clearly said that they're going to support Russia, and that no limit partnership is going to go ahead. So if that no limit partnership is going to go ahead, the trust factor for many people will go down. Right? It places us also in a problem, but that's a different thing. We'll discuss that because that it puts the Russia-India equation at a premium. But we'll talk of that later. So we'll concentrate on China now.
So you mentioned the European Union kind of strengthening up and the transatlantic treaties becoming a bit more stronger. Of course, NATO and its issues have actually created the crisis in Ukraine, but that apart, they're not going to realize it so soon and move forward. Now, when you have these power blocks that are going to create one transatlantic and a Russia-China axis, this is going to create another whole set of new geopolitics.
Yeah. That will happen. That is going to happen. It's already happening. Okay, that some kind of a Cold War kind of a thing is happening, and that is autarkic. It'll happen whether people like it or not. Right? As if this war continues for longer, it'll happen even more. So one thing for sure, the Western world is now very clear that they'll be anti-Russia, and if China teams up with Russia, they'll be anti-China also. So that is another phase of equations.
So finally, you've got a situation within China where Xi Jinping wants to now get re-elected. There are write-ups, there are talks, and these are Chinese who are releasing them within their society. There are news articles which are coming across about not very happy features of Xi Jinping's rule. So there's a bit of an internal strife. We saw the premier kind of talking about it as well in terms of what could have been done better. I mean, he said it in a very positive twist, but we all know what he's trying to say. How do you see the situation within China and all this Ukraine affecting, as it is a very delicate situation and is going to kind of push it even further?
See, let me look. We all know, and we've discussed this earlier also, that there are factions within China, and Xi Jinping is getting opposition from within. Now he's trying to win them over, or eliminate them through purges and bribery charges and all that. We know that, and we've been discussing it. But now, what has happened with this Russia-China thing is that there's a lot of public backlash. The public backlash is that they feel that Russia is at fault and China supporting Russia is not correct. Let's come out within their thing. There is opposition, the public. Plus, there is also an opinion within Russia that China, that this entire affair has not been handled too well. It puts China at risk. Okay. And this affair per se is going to militarize nations. If people that side get militarized, so will this area. And if every small country around the Pacific or around China gets militarized, there's going to be a problem. So with the earlier level of problems, you now got additional problems, and then you have India, which is emerging as a different power in this whole story, right? So also, if you see around India, whether it's Sri Lanka or Bangladesh or Nepal, China has run into rough weather with them. So there is a feeling overall, after all, people are watching all this, they would say, look, Xi Jinping is probably not doing a great thing. So if he is not doing a great thing, he's going to have opposition. Whether it's Li Keqiang or whoever it is, I mean, that we don't know. But there is an issue. And that's going to be, politically, it is going to weaken China. Apart from the fact, for the first time in the past 3-4 days, I am seeing some news about Tibet, some odd snippet about Tibet. Xinjiang is an issue. Now, what happens if these restive areas and Taiwan adopt the Ukraine model? So Xi Jinping's position is going to become a little more problematic for him. So there are issues in all this, right? So it's going to be interesting. It's not, and that is why one of the reasons why I think they're coming to India. If they're going to have problems with the West, they're going to have problems with Japan, they're going to have problems with North Korea, with nuclearization and all that, right? Shouldn't they mend fences with India? If they have to challenge USA, India becomes important for them. So that is why Mr. Wang Yi wants to come to India. And that is why we need to understand which China are we dealing with. A realistic assessment of China is important for us from that point of view. And also remember, what comes out is that PLA is not so well trained. If this great Russian army, which is supposed to be so well trained, is struggling, what will happen to PLA, which will have to carry out complicated maneuvers in war, for which they're not trained at all? Or now, the last war they fought was in 1979. Will they be able to sustain such losses?
The Russians have suffered losses, so there's body bag.
Yeah, there is no doubt. There is a problem. I mean, all this big talk of PLA being a very strong force might not stand the test of the day. So that is why China is, you have to take a hard look. Their politics is not great, their economics is not great, their trust is poor, their worldview is not so great, is not being subscribed to. So their internal economy is slipping. COVID has caught them. Aging, we have not spoken of it. Aging is another problem that's not going away. So we are not talking of a China which is really a superpower. After all, it's still a resource deficient nation. So we have to deal with China on real politics. What is that real politic and what do you have to see is what we could probably discuss in the next episode.
That is actually the point, and that is one of the reasons why I guess we wanted to split this into two parts, is because we need to take the base of what's happening in China and then discuss India-China relations.
Yeah, I agree with you.
A lot of people put across that the win for Modi Saab in UP means stronger internal politics for Modi and a lot of internal stability for his government right up till 2029. That's the prediction, and that is what.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, I agree with you because politically, India is strong today. You might not agree with Mr. Modi's politics, but that doesn't matter. At a national level, he's politically strong. Internal politics is strong. That itself, and plus your economy has not been hit. Nothing has happened. You're going to get cheap Russian oil one way or the other, right? And you're not. Your energy is okay. Yeah, you have a slight problem in the diplomatic issues, but that I suppose will sort it out.
Diplomacy is all about interest, sir. Today, probably they have an interest in trying to put pressure on India. Tomorrow, when they need the favor, you will find all of them running back to India.
As they're already done
in this month.
No, already happening. Japan premier is coming here, right? I believe high-powered delegation from US is going to land up here.
The Deputy Secretary of State is coming, sir.
Yeah, and the UK Foreign Minister is planning to come here, right? And plus, Mr. Wang Yi is coming. So there is a change in the equation of India, and we have to realize that.
Funny thing, and I'd like you to comment on this last bit, sir. A lot of people actually comment on countries' images across the world by one odd statement that is made by a particular country, for example, the US, and not their written policies. If one studies their, Southeast Asian policy that they had put out in February, if you talk about their threat perception policy that they just put out last week, they talk about India actually taking a leadership role within the security of this particular region. Now, those things don't change because of one thing here and there. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you completely. Nothing changes. In fact, I would put it the other way around. For a stable world, the requirement of a strong India is paramount. Our role can only increase. The issue is what are the choices we have to make? And we have to make some choices with respect to China. And what are the choices we have to discuss? I think that we'll do in the next episode.
Absolutely. So this is the baseline for the India-China, because China is going to be one of the biggest challenges that India has today, apart from what's happening across the world. And I think India has come out very clearly on its stance of humanitarianism, respecting territorial integrity, and so on and so forth. So it had to make a point across, which is done. It's also making a point by buying Russian oil. So there's a lot which is happening within India that we need to understand, along with India's relationship with China. It will sort out a lot of things if this thing calms down. I'm not a very pro-China person sitting here, but I'm actually pro-India. So whatever is the requirement for India to actually achieve what it wants to achieve, China needs to get sorted out, and that's just about it. So thank you so much. Interesting talk. I think we need to build on this with India, China, and of course, I've been trying to, I've been actually discussing with you offline as well, the world geopolitics, and that's something we'll have to come to a point when some sort of an agreement between Russia and Ukraine comes to a point, because that's where the real juice of the fruit will come out from across the world, because how countries react would be interesting to actually find out, and where do they stand after which. Thank you so much once again, and till next time, sir. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Thank you.